Sarah Miller shoved through the summer crowd, one hand pressed to her swollen belly, the other clutching 6 crumpled dollars. The auctioneer's gavel was rising. On that splintered platform stood a cowboy, broken clean through, hollow-eyed, blood-stained, a screaming newborn in his arms. Nobody was bidding. Nobody would even look. Sarah's voice tore out of her before her mind caught up. "Stop! I'm claiming him. I'm claiming them both." If you want to know what a pregnant widow does when her whole town turns its back, stay with me to the end. Subscribe, hit that bell, and drop the city you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far this story travels. 1 hour earlier, Sarah Miller knelt in the dry red dirt beside a grave that wasn't a week old. Her fingers pressed into the earth like she could reach through it and take her father's hand one more time. 30 days, Pa, she whispered. They gave me 30 days. The summer wind was hot and mean. I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Her other hand drifted to her belly, to the hard swell beneath her black mourning dress. But I ain't leaving this land. You hear me? I ain't leaving. She pulled the bank's letter from her pocket. Read it again, though she knew every word. 30 days to prove a woman could hold a homestead, or the title reverted to the county. And the county everyone in Cross Creek knew was practically owned by Mr. Clarence Wade. She folded the letter and kissed her fingers and pressed them to the wooden cross her own hands had hammered together 3 mornings ago. I got to go into town, Pa. I got to buy seed I can't afford from a man who wants me to fail. She stood up slow, because standing up wasn't easy anymore. I'll be back by sundown. The walk into Cross Creek was 4 miles, and she made it in just over an hour, one hand under her belly the whole way, the other holding the money she'd scraped out of her father's coffee tin. $6. $6 against the world. She heard the crowd before she saw it. Voices raised and ugly the way a crowd gets when it's decided somebody needs shaming. She almost turned around. Almost. But something in the tone pulled her forward past the blacksmiths, past the feed store, all the way to the dusty square in front of the courthouse, where the whole of Cross Creek seemed to have gathered under a pitiless white sun. She stopped at the edge of it. "What's happening here?" she asked the woman next to her. Mrs. Hennessy, the preacher's wife, who had stopped sitting with Sarah in church the very day her father took sick. Mrs. Hennessy did not look at her. Auction. Auction of what? That fool Thornton. What's left of him anyhow? Sarah's stomach twisted. Thornton Cade Thornton. The very same. Wife died birthing the child 3 days back. 2 days after that, the bank called in his note. Today they're selling off everything that won't walk on its own tools. Horse's saddle wedding ring off his own finger. Wade bought the paper on him. Wade bought the paper on half the territory. But the baby goes to the Sisters of Mercy in Guthrie once the auction's done. Man can't raise a newborn on no land, no wife, no money. Everybody knows that. Everybody. That's what the sheriff says. That's what the judge says. That's what the good Lord himself says, I reckon, seeing as nobody's stopping it. Sarah pushed forward. The platform was 3 planks on 2 whiskey barrels. The auctioneer was a man named Pike, with a chew in his lip and an eye half swollen shut. He'd been at her father's funeral 6 days ago, hat in his hand, and he hadn't been able to look her in the face then either. On the platform stood Cade Thornton. Sarah hadn't seen him in nearly a year. The man who used to tip his hat to her outside the general store. The man who'd ridden 4 miles over to her porch the week her daddy first got sick and left a side of venison on the step without even knocking. That man was gone. In his place stood something hollowed out. His shirt had blood down the front of it the birth 3 days ago, and nobody had given him leave to wash. His eyes were the color of a banked fire about to go out. In his arms, wrapped in a piece of gray blanket, a baby screamed. Not cried. Screamed. The thin, ragged scream of a 3-day-old who had not been fed right, or held right, or comforted right in more hours than it knew how to count. Cade was rocking it slow, steady, like he'd been rocking it since the world ended. Pike's gavel came up. Last items, folks. Saddle, tooled leather. Worth $18 if it's worth a nickel. Who'll start me at 3? Silence. $3. Come on, folks, it's a saddle, not a rattlesnake. A man in the back spat. Ain't buying nothing off a man whose wife died cursin' him. A ripple of agreement went through the crowd. Sarah's head snapped toward the speaker. She didn't curse him, she said loud enough to carry. Heads turned. Mrs. Hennessy's hand closed on Sarah's elbow. Hush now, child. You don't want to. Don't touch me. Sarah pulled free and raised her voice again. I said she didn't curse him. My mother died birthing me. She didn't curse my father. Women die sometimes. It ain't the husband's fault. Pike cleared his throat, staring at his boots. $3 for the saddle. $1, somebody said and laughed. Sold, Pike said quickly, gavel down. Then he looked at Cade, and Cade looked back at him, and Pike said, that just leaves the ring, son. Sarah felt the crowd lean in. Thornton, you got to take it off and put it in the box. That's the order of the court. Cade didn't move. Cade, Pike's voice cracked. Son, I'm sorry. I got to. His wife's ring, Sarah hissed at Mrs. Hennessy. Gold band. Wade's lawyer valued it at $9. Last thing on the list. Cade's free hand came up slow. His wedding band was on his little finger, now too big since he'd lost the weight this past year. He looked at it. Looked at the sleeping, screaming baby on his chest. Looked at Pike. He did not put the ring in the box. Cade, Pike whispered. And then a voice drifted up from the edge of the crowd. Smooth, satisfied. A voice Sarah had heard once already this week, reading her a letter across a banker's desk. Let me help him, Pike. Clarence Wade. Sarah had never hated a sound like she hated that voice. Wade stepped up onto the platform, white linen suit in the summer dust, not a wrinkle on it, not a speck, and laid a hand on Cade's shoulder like he was the man's dearest friend in the world. Cade, old son, Wade's voice was syrup. Let's do this like gentlemen. Ring in the box. Baby to the sisters up in Guthrie. Then you come work my North Range till the debt's paid off, and we'll say no more about any of it. Work it how long? Sarah did not even know she had spoken until she felt the crowd turn. Wade smiled at her. A kind smile. The kind of smile a fox gives a hen. Miss Miller, I didn't know you were in town. How's that land of yours coming along? 23 days left, if my count is right. How long does he owe you, Mr. Wade? Well now. Wade rubbed his chin like he was just now working it out. 6 years, maybe 7 depending on the price of beef. 7 years of labor for a debt of what amount? $412, Miss Miller, plus interest. That's not a debt, that's a sentence. The crowd shifted. Somebody chuckled low and uneasy. Wade's smile did not move. It is the law, Miss Miller. Same law that gave you 30 days on your papa's homestead. You of all people ought to understand. That line cut. Sarah felt it land, and she felt her knees almost go. She looked at the baby in Cade's arms. 3 days old. Screaming still, but weaker now. The scream of a baby learning that sometimes there isn't any answer. She looked at Cade. His eyes were on her. Not begging, not asking. Just seeing her. Really seeing her, maybe for the first time in his whole life, the way a drowning man sees the shore. She looked down at her own belly, and she heard her father's voice, clear as if he were standing right next to her in the square. A person's worth ain't what they got, Sarah girl. A person's worth is what they build. Her hand went into her pocket. Her fingers closed on 6 crumpled dollars. $6 against the world. Stop the auction, she said. Pike blinked at her. Ma'am, I said stop the auction. Miss Miller, I can't. I'm claiming him. The whole square went still. Wade's smile finally moved. Just a flicker. I beg your pardon? Sarah stepped forward. 1 step, then another. She walked right up to the foot of that splintered platform with her $6 in her hand and a baby of her own growing inside her and her dead father's voice ringing in her ear. Mr. Thornton's debt, she said. I'll take it. Pike stared at her. Sarah. Cade's voice rough from 3 days of not speaking. Sarah, don't. She did not look at him. Mr. Wade, you said $412, plus interest. I have $6 on me right now, and a homestead that'll be producing inside a season, God willing. I'll sign a note. 7 years on my land, his labor, not his freedom against that debt. Baby stays. Ring stays. He stays a free man under my roof. Miss Miller. I ain't finished. You want 7 years of a man's work, Mr. Wade? You take it from me, not from him. His debt is now my debt. Wade laughed. It was short and it was real. Miss Miller. You cannot assume another person's indenture. The law does not. The law says a woman can't hold land either, Mr. Wade. But the law made me 30 days, didn't it? Because my father's will said so. The law makes exceptions when the right papers get signed. She turned her head. Pike, you're the auctioneer. You got authority to take a bid, don't you? I'm bidding. I'm bidding everything I got and everything I'll have for the next 7 years on one debt and one man and one baby. Take the bid. Pike looked at Wade. Wade's jaw had gone tight. Pike, Wade said softly, this is not how we do things in Cross Creek. I'm asking the auctioneer, Mr. Wade, not the banker. Sarah's voice was shaking so hard she thought it would break, but it did not break. Pike, take the bid or don't. Pike looked at Cade. Cade was staring at Sarah like he had never seen another human being in his whole entire life. Take it, Cade said. Pike swallowed. Going once. Pike, Wade snapped. Going twice. Pike, you son of a... Sold. To Miss Sarah Miller. Lord help her. The gavel came down on the whiskey barrel like the crack of a rifle. The crowd did not part for her. She had to push through it. Somebody said something ugly about her belly, and she did not hear. Somebody else said something ugly about her dead mother, and she heard that one and kept walking. She climbed the 3 plank steps onto the platform and she put out her arms. Give me the baby, Mr. Thornton. Sarah, give me the baby, please. I can't hold you up and I can't hold your things and I can't hold him too. Give me the baby and you carry your saddle and we are walking out of this town right now. He passed the baby to her. The weight of the newborn in her arms almost took her knees out from under her. 3 days old. Barely 3 days old. And already he knew how to be held. He stopped screaming the second he felt her a woman's arms. A warm body, a heartbeat. He made one small whimper, and he went quiet. Sarah looked down at him. His face was blotched red, and his eyes were squeezed shut, and he was the single most beautiful thing she had ever seen in her entire life. Hey, little man, she whispered. Cade picked up his saddle. He stepped off the platform like a man stepping off a gallows. Wade caught Sarah's sleeve as she passed him. Miss Miller, a word. Let go of my sleeve, Mr. Wade. He let go. But he leaned in close so only she could hear. You have 23 days left on your own deadline, girl. And you have just taken on a debt of $412, a grown man's labor, and a 3-day-old child. You will fail, Miss Miller. You will fail on every count. And when you do, and it will be within the month, I give you my word, that land and that man and that baby all come to me. You have not saved them today. You have only delivered them to me on a date I get to choose. Sarah turned her head and looked him dead in the eye. Mr. Wade, she said, I buried my husband last fall. I buried my father 6 days ago. I got a baby inside me and a baby in my arms and a debt on my back I can't count high enough to name. And I promise you something right back. Her voice dropped. The next person I bury in my field ain't gonna be family. Wade did not answer. She did not wait for him to. She walked down the steps with a newborn asleep on her shoulder and a broken cowboy behind her carrying a saddle. And the whole of Cross Creek watched them go. They were half a mile out of town before either one of them said a word. It was Cade. Why? Just the one word. Sarah kept walking. The baby had fallen properly asleep now, mouth open against her collarbone, one tiny fist curled in the fabric of her dress. Why what, Mr. Thornton? Why did you do that? Which part? Any of it, all of it, Sarah. You don't know me. I don't know you. You just signed yourself into 7 years of... I know you, Mr. Thornton. You don't. You rode 4 miles to my porch the week my daddy first took sick. You left a side of venison and you didn't knock. You didn't knock because you knew I wouldn't have let you see me cry and you didn't want to make me. He stopped walking. She did not. He had to hurry to catch up saddle over his shoulder, and when he did, his voice was hoarse. That's not a reason to... It's my reason, Mr. Thornton. It is not your business what my reasons are. Your business right now is to keep walking until we get to my land. Then your business is to put that saddle down and eat something because you look like a man who ain't eaten since Tuesday. Then your business is to sleep because your son is going to need a father who can stand up tomorrow. And after that, we will talk about the next 7 years. He walked. After another half mile, he said quietly, He don't have a name yet. Who? The baby. My wife Ellen. She wanted to, she never got to. His voice broke. Sarah did not look at him. A woman could only bear so much at once. Then you got time, Mr. Thornton. You got 7 years of time. He did not answer. The sun was westering. The red dirt road ran on ahead of them, and Sarah's belly ached and her arms ached, and the baby was warm against her collarbone. And behind them, somewhere, Clarence Wade was already smiling his fox smile and making his next set of plans, and she was walking toward a homestead with 23 days on it and $412 owed, and a man and a child she had bought with $6 in her mouth. Mr. Thornton. Yes, ma'am. Call me Sarah. Yes, ma'am, Sarah. And I'm going to call you Cade, if that's all right with you. It's all right. They walked. The baby slept. And somewhere behind them, in a dusty square in front of a Cross Creek courthouse, a preacher's wife was already telling the story to anybody who would listen. How the Miller girl, already ruined, already widowed, already big with child, had stood up on the hottest Tuesday of the hottest summer in 10 years and bought herself a broken cowboy and his motherless baby off the auction block with $6 in a mouth. The story would be all over the territory by morning, and Clarence Wade was counting on it. The Miller homestead came up on them slow, the way home always does when a person's been walking toward it carrying more than they ought. Sarah saw the cabin first, then the barn, then the well. Then she saw that the front door was standing wide open. She stopped in the road. Cade. I see it. I closed that door this morning. I closed it and I latched it. I know, Sarah. Somebody's been in my house. Cade set the saddle down in the dirt. He had a Winchester strapped to it, and he took that Winchester off, and he worked the lever 1 time clean. Give me the baby. No. Sarah. I said no. You walk in front. I walk 10 steps behind. If somebody's still inside and he comes out shooting you, shoot him and I run. That's how we do this. That ain't how we do this. It is today. Move, Cade. He moved. She followed him up the path with the baby asleep on her shoulder and her free hand pressed under her belly because every step hurt. Now, every step had hurt for the last mile, and she was not going to say so. Cade went through the door, low and fast. She heard him in the front room. Heard him in the kitchen, heard him on the stairs. Then she heard him laugh. One short, bitter laugh. Sarah, come see. She stepped inside. Her father's rocking chair was on its side. The kitchen drawers were pulled out and dumped. The coffee tin she had taken her $6 from that morning was sitting in the middle of the table, empty, turned upside down like a message. On the table beside it was a folded piece of paper with her name written on the outside in fine black ink. Don't touch it, Cade said. It's my house. Don't touch it till I read it first. He picked it up, unfolded it. His eyes moved once, twice, and then his jaw set like a stone. What does it say? Sarah? What does it say, Cade? He handed it to her. Miss Miller. It read in Clarence Wade's looping gentleman's hand. I trust you had a pleasant walk home. While you were occupied in town, the county assessor came out to perform the 30-day inspection required by your late father's note. He found the premises unoccupied and the livestock untended. This has been entered into the county record. You have 23 days remaining. I remain as ever your neighbor and servant, C. Wade. Sarah read it twice. Then she folded it very carefully and put it in her apron pocket. Cade. Yes, Sarah. Is there a county assessor in Caddo County who would sign off on an inspection he did not perform? There's one who would sign off on his own mother's hangin' if Wade paid him right. That's what I thought. The baby stirred on her shoulder, made a small hungry sound. She rocked him without thinking. Cade. Yes, Sarah. I don't know how to feed a baby. It was the first time all day her voice had cracked. He took her elbow. Gentle. Steadier than a man who'd been through what he'd been through that week had any business being. There's a goat, he said. Ellen, there's a goat at my place. She's a milker. Fresh. I'll go get her tonight. Your place is 8 miles. Yes, ma'am. You ain't walked 16 miles today on top of everything else. I have, and I will. Cade, Sarah. He looked at her. His eyes were red, but they were steady now. You just signed for 7 years of my labor in front of God and Clarence Wade and half the town of Cross Creek. You let me do the labor. She almost laughed. It almost came out. Instead, her eyes filled, and she turned her face away. Sit the baby down, he said. Sit yourself down. I'll right the chair. I'll get the stove going. I'll ride for the goat soon as I see you sat. There's no horse. I'll walk. Cade, there's no horse because Wade bought my horse at auction 2 weeks ago on a lien I didn't know existed. Cade was quiet a long second. Then I'll walk, he said again. He did not walk that night because the baby started crying at sundown and did not stop, and Sarah did not know what to do, and Cade knew exactly what to do, and could not make himself say it. Finally, Sarah set the baby down on her father's bed and turned around to him in the doorway and said, Tell me, Cade, tell me right now, what did your wife do? What did she do when he cried? He looked at the floor. Cade? She sang. What did she sing? Sarah, I can't. I don't need you to sing it. I need you to tell me what she sang so I can sing it to him. He closed his eyes. Bringing in the sheaves. She sang Bringing in the Sheaves. It wasn't a lullaby. It was the only song she knew all the words to. Sarah nodded once. She turned back to the bed. The baby was purple-faced and furious. She sat down on the edge of the mattress. She set her hand on his small shaking chest. Bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Her voice was not beautiful. It was a working woman's voice, a farmer's daughter's voice, a woman who had sung hymns in a church that had stopped sitting next to her. The baby quieted on the third bringing in. She did not turn around to see if Cade was still in the doorway. She did not need to. She could feel him there standing still as a carved thing, and she could feel the grief coming off him like heat off a stove. Cade, ma'am, go sleep in the barn. Sarah, you sleep in the barn. You hear me? There is already a story going around this county tonight about what I did in town today. I will not have a second story going around tomorrow about what I did after dark. You sleep in the barn and you come in at sunup for coffee and for the baby, and that is the arrangement. You understand me. I understand. Good. She did not hear him move for a long moment. Then the floorboards creaked, and then the door closed, and then she was alone with a strange woman's strange baby on her dead father's bed. She bent her head over the child, and she cried without making a sound, the way a woman cries when she has been holding it for 14 hours and cannot hold it 1 second longer. Morning came mean. The rooster she still had. One rooster, no hens, because Wade's last move had taken. The hens started in before the sky was even gray. Sarah opened her eyes on her father's pillow, with the baby curled against her side, and for one confused second, she thought she had dreamed the whole thing. Then the baby made a small mewing sound, and she remembered. She got up slow. She found Cade in the kitchen. He had the stove going. He had coffee on. He had his shirt off and was washing his face and chest at the basin, and when he heard her footstep, he reached for his shirt fast and pulled it on without looking at her. Morning, Sarah. Morning, Cade. You sleep? Some. You eat? Not yet. There's meal. There's lard. That's about it till I can get to town. I know. You made coffee with the last of the grounds. I know, Sarah. I'll walk for supplies after I walk for the goat. You'll do neither. You'll sit down and drink that coffee with me, and then we will talk about what we are doing. Because I did not stand up in that square yesterday to have you walk yourself to death on my behalf inside a week. Sit down, Cade. He sat. She poured 2 cups. She set one in front of him, and she sat down across from him, and she put her hands around her own cup to keep them from shaking. Cade? Sarah. How many men does Wade have on his payroll right now? 8 last I counted. Could be 10 now. How many of them are gun hands? All of them one way or another. But there's 2 in particular. A man named Briggs and a man named Halsey. Halsey is the one to watch. Why? Because Halsey killed a sheriff in Missouri and rode west to keep from hanging for it, and Wade is the man who paid his way. Sarah nodded. She drank. Cade. Sarah. My father left me a letter. He looked up. A letter. Under a loose board in the pantry. I found it the morning after he passed. I have not read it yet. Why not? Because I was afraid. Of what? She did not answer right away. She turned her cup in her hands and watched the coffee move. My mother, she said finally, died when I was born. That's the story I have been told my whole life. My father raised me alone. He never remarried. He never courted another woman. He was 52 years old when he passed, and he was the gentlest man in this county, and I loved him more than I have ever loved any living soul. I know you did. But Mrs. Hennessy said something to me yesterday, in the square, before she knew I was standing next to her. She said when my father first brought me into this county, I was 3 years old. Not a baby. 3. And there was a story about where I came from, and Mrs. Hennessy said it was a story my father paid good money to make people forget. Cade set his coffee down. What story, Sarah? I don't know. That's what's in the letter, I think. And I did not want to know. And now I think I have to know. Because whatever my father paid to make people forget Clarence Wade has been remembering, and he has been saving it, and he is going to use it on me inside of 23 days. Read the letter, Sarah. I'll read it tonight, when the baby sleeps. Read it now. She shook her head. I can't read it and stand up in the same hour, Cade. I know myself. I'll read it tonight. He did not push her. Instead, he drank his coffee. Then he set the cup down and he said, I need to tell you something and I don't want to say it. Say it. The baby needs a name today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because if Wade's man comes back out here with papers and that child does not have a name entered on a page somewhere in this house, the law will say he is not a person who belongs to anybody. And the Sisters of Mercy can come for him under a writ of abandoned orphan, and there is not a thing I can do to stop them. I know because my own lawyer told me that yesterday morning before the auction, and I was too broken to understand what he was telling me. But I understand now. Sarah sat very still. You got a name picked out, Cade? Ellen had a name picked out. What was it? Samuel, after her father, Samuel Cade Thornton. Then that's his name. Sarah, there's nobody to write it down. There's no registrar in this county. The only man who keeps records in Caddo County is a clerk named Fenton who sits in Clarence Wade's office 3 days a week. Then we write it down ourselves. We write it in the Miller family Bible in ink, and we both sign our names as witnesses, and we date it, and by law in this territory that is a record. My father showed me that page when I was 8 years old. He wrote my own mother's passing on it. Whatever else is true about her, that record has stood in court twice. It will stand a third time. Cade breathed out slow. You are a hard thinker, Sarah Miller. I'm a scared woman, Cade Thornton. That is not the same thing, but it works in the same direction. She got up. She brought down her father's Bible from the high shelf. She set it on the table between them, and she opened it to the page where her father's careful hand had written the names and the dates of the Miller line going back 3 generations. She picked up the pen. Samuel Cade Thornton, she wrote. Born Tuesday last. Claimed this day at Miller Homestead, Caddo County, Oklahoma Territory, in the presence of his father, Cade Thornton, and of Sarah Miller. She passed the pen to Cade. His hand shook for the first time that morning. He signed. She signed under him. The baby slept in the cradle her father had built for her own self 31 years ago, unaware that he had just been pulled out of the reach of the Sisters of Mercy by 2 people and 1 page of a family Bible. A horse came up the road at noon. Sarah heard it first. She was in the yard with a line of wet wash. Cade was at the woodpile. The baby was asleep inside. Cade? I hear him. One rider. Yes. You know him. I will in about 30 seconds. The rider came into the yard. He did not dismount. He was a short, wide man with a mustache yellow at the ends from tobacco, and he had a tin star pinned crooked on his vest. Miss Miller. Sheriff Briggs. Ma'am, I'm sorry to trouble you. I got a complaint to serve. A complaint from who? Mr. Wade, ma'am. Cade set the axe down. Sarah did not turn her head toward him, but she felt him move 3 steps closer to her elbow. What's the complaint, Sheriff? Ma'am, it's a matter of propriety. Mr. Wade says, and he has 2 affidavits from citizens of Cross Creek to back it, that you are keeping a grown unmarried man under your roof in your condition, and that this constitutes a public scandal which reflects poorly on the moral standing of your homestead, and that the county has the right under the Homestead Morality Act of 1884 to revoke your claim on grounds of sheriff. Ma'am, Mr. Thornton does not sleep under my roof. Mr. Thornton sleeps in the barn. Has done since last night. Will do until such time as our arrangement permits otherwise. You may inspect the barn right now if you wish, and you will find his bedroll and his saddle, and no evidence that he has set foot in my cabin after dark. Briggs shifted in the saddle. Ma'am, that's a technical defense. It's the defense I have, Sheriff. Is there a Homestead Morality Act of 1884? There is, ma'am. Does it define under the roof? Ma'am, I am not a lawyer. Neither am I. But I have an attorney in Guthrie who was my father's friend for 30 years, and I will telegraph him the minute you ride out of my yard. In the meantime, you may note in your book that Mr. Thornton is a hired hand on my homestead under a labor note signed at public auction in front of 30 witnesses, and that he sleeps in the barn, and that there is no scandal here except the one Mr. Wade is manufacturing for his own purposes. You may write that in your book, and you may carry it back to him with my compliments. Briggs looked at Cade. Cade looked back at him. Briggs said, Thornton, I was awful sorry to hear about Ellen. Were you, Sheriff? I was. She was a sweet girl. Then you might have said so at the auction yesterday, before they took the ring off her finger. Briggs did not have an answer for that. He touched his hat to Sarah. He turned his horse. He rode out. Sarah did not move for a full minute after the sound of the hooves was gone. Then her knees went. Cade caught her before she hit the ground. He caught her the way a man catches a falling rifle fast and without thinking, and he held her upright with one arm around her back. Sarah. I'm all right. You're not. I'm all right, Cade. Let me go. I'll let you go when you're sitting down. He walked her to the porch. He sat her down on the step. He knelt in the dirt in front of her, which she would remember later was the posture of a man who had stopped being anybody's hired hand. Sarah, listen to me. I'm listening. He is going to keep doing this. I know. Every 3 days, every 2 days, every day, maybe toward the end. Some new piece of paper, some new witness, some new law nobody remembers. And every time he does it, he is going to chip a little more off you. And you cannot afford to be chipped, Sarah. Not in your condition. Not with a 3-day-old in the house. Not with a deadline. I know, Cade. Then you know what I'm going to say next. Don't say it. Sarah. Don't say it yet, Cade. It's only been 1 day. Don't say it yet. He did not say it. He sat down beside her on the step instead. He did not touch her. He just sat there while the hot wind came across the yard and the laundry she had hung out snapped on the line. After a long while he said, I'll walk for the goat now. You'll eat first. I'll eat when I get back. You'll eat first. Cade Thornton, or I will pick up that axe and bury it in the chopping block, and you will have to spend your afternoon digging it out before you can split any more wood. Eat. He ate. He walked for the goat at 2 o'clock. He came back at 9 with the goat on a rope and a cloth sack of flour over his shoulder, and a black eye he would not explain until morning. Sarah did not sleep that night either. She had the letter out on the kitchen table, the one her father had left. It sat there in the lamplight, and she looked at it for 2 hours and did not pick it up. The baby slept. The goat tethered in the yard bleated once and settled. Finally, Sarah picked up the letter. She opened it. She read it. "My Sarah," her father had written. "If you are reading this, I am gone, and I have left you a thing I should have told you with my living mouth, and did not have the courage to. Your mother did not die in Missouri. Your mother is alive, or she was 6 years ago when she last wrote me. Your mother is a Cherokee woman named Awanita, and she is my lawful wife under the laws of the Cherokee Nation, and you are the daughter of that marriage. When you were 2 years old, the state of Missouri passed a law that said a child of mixed blood could not inherit from a white father. I took you west. I told the county you were the child of a dead white mother from back east. I did this because I wanted you to have this land, Sarah. I did this because I was afraid. I was a coward in this and only in this, and I beg your forgiveness. Your mother knows where you are. She has chosen not to come for you because she believed, and I believed, that you would be safer as a white farmer's white daughter than as a half-blood girl on the Oklahoma frontier. Clarence Wade knows. He has known for 11 years. He has kept the knowing as a card to play when he wanted my land, and now he will play it against you. The only defense against him is to get the truth into the open before he does. Tell the town yourself. Tell them from the pulpit if you have to. A secret he can use against you stops being a weapon the second it stops being a secret. Your loving father, Thomas Miller." Sarah laid the letter on the table. She did not cry. She sat for a long time, and she watched the lamp flame move. Then she got up. She walked out of the cabin in her bare feet across the warm summer dirt of the yard, and she stood at the door of the barn in the moonlight, and she said soft, "Cade." He was up before she finished the second syllable, rifle in hand, because nobody came to the barn door at that hour in that county for a good reason. "What's wrong? I need you to hear something. Now, Cade." He came out. He leaned the rifle against the wall. He sat down on the straw at her feet because she did not sit, and he would not stand over her. She read him the letter, all of it. Her voice did not break. When she was done, the summer night was still around them, and the goat was breathing somewhere in the dark, and the baby, her baby now as much as his, was asleep inside the cabin. Cade said, "Sarah, don't tell me it don't matter." "I wasn't going to." "Don't tell me you don't care. Don't tell me there's people in this county who won't care. Don't lie to me, Cade. I have had enough lying from men who loved me. Just tell me the true thing." "The true thing," he said slowly, "is that Clarence Wade has been holding this card for 11 years. And he has been holding it because he knew it was the one card in the deck that would finish you. And you just read it out loud to a man you have known for one day." "Yes." "Why, Sarah?" "Because my father said the only defense is to get the truth into the open before he does. And I am starting with you. Because if you are going to leave me over this, I would rather know tonight than in 3 weeks when Wade prints it in the county paper and you hear it from somebody else." Cade was quiet. Then he said, "Sarah Miller." "Yes, Cade. I have known you for one day. And in that one day, you have bought me off an auction block with $6 named my son in a family Bible, stood down a sheriff in your own yard, and read me your father's dying confession at midnight in a barn. If I am leaving you, it is not going to be over the blood in your veins. I hope to the good Lord above you know that already." She did not answer. She sat down in the straw beside him, because her knees would not hold her anymore. He did not touch her. They sat shoulder to shoulder in the barn in the dark, and after a while he said, 22 days. 22 days. We got to tell the town, Sarah." "I know. Sunday is in 4 days." "I know. That preacher sat next to your father every Sunday of your life." "He did. He'll let you speak if you ask him." "Will he? If he don't, I'll ask him for you. And I'll ask him with my hat in my hand the first time. I don't promise anything about the second time." Sarah laughed. One small, cracked, astonished laugh. the first laugh that had come out of her in 8 days. Cade turned his head and looked at her. She was looking at the dark rafters of the barn. "Cade?" "Sarah." "The baby's name is Samuel." "Yes." "My son's name when he comes will be Thomas, after my father." "That's a good name." "I thought so." The goat shifted. Somewhere out past the fence, a coyote called once and got no answer. A single moth beat against the lantern Cade had hung on the barn post. In his white house in Cross Creek, Clarence Wade was finishing a glass of brandy and writing a second letter. This one to a judge in Guthrie. This one about a Cherokee woman named Awanita, and a homestead claim that had been filed under fraudulent grounds in the spring of 1873. He would mail it in the morning. Morning came with a telegram. Sarah was nursing the goat's milk into Samuel with a rag end dipped in a saucer when Cade rode in on a borrowed mule he had not ridden in on the night before. She looked up from the baby. "Cade, whose mule?" "Reverend Ames's. He loaned him to me at sunup." "You've been to the parsonage already?" "I went at 4. I did not sleep after the barn." And, he did not answer. He handed her a folded yellow paper. She passed him the baby and the saucer, and she opened it. Miller Homestead, Caddo County. Stop hearing set Guthrie District Court Monday. Next. Stop reclaim fraud allegation. Stop your presence required. Stop Judge Otis presiding. Stop Stimson clerk. Sarah read it twice. Monday. Monday. 4 days. 4 days. He moved faster than I thought he could. He moved faster than anybody in this county can move Sarah, which means he had the paperwork drawn up before yesterday, which means he had it drawn up before the auction, which means he had it drawn up before you ever walked into that square with $6. He was going to use it on my father. He was going to use it on your father the day your father died in arrears. Your father just died 1 week ahead of the schedule Wade had in his head. You walked into the square yesterday, and you did not just take me off that block. You stepped into a trap that was set for a dead man. Sarah folded the telegram. She put it on the table next to her father's letter. Cade? Sarah. What did the Reverend say? He looked at the baby in his arms instead of at her. Cade. He said no. He said no to what? He said no to Sunday. He said his pulpit is not a courtroom and not a newspaper and not a stage for personal matters, and he will not have a woman in her condition speaking from it on any subject whatsoever. And he is particularly not going to have the subject of blood spoken of in his church in front of the children of his congregation. Sarah's hands closed flat on the table. Those were his words. Those were his words. The subject of blood. Yes. Reverend Ames, who sat next to my father every Sunday for 29 years, who baptized me in that church when I was 4 years old, who buried my husband last fall and refused payment for the service that Reverend Ames said the subject of blood. Sarah, what did you say to him? I asked him a second time, with my hat off, and he said the second answer was the same as the first. And I left the parsonage, Sarah, because I told you last night I would not promise anything about the second asking, and I meant to keep that promise, and I did keep it. Barely. She laughed once, the dry, flat laugh of a woman who did not find anything funny. 4 days, she said. Monday in Guthrie, and no pulpit on Sunday. No pulpit on Sunday. So Wade reads it in the courthouse before I have a chance to say a word. Yes. She stood up. Then we do not wait for Sunday. We do not wait for Monday. We go to town today. Sarah? What? You go to town today on what? We got no horse. You got a baby and a belly and 4 miles on a hot road. I rode Reverend Ames's mule back here because I was not going to leave you alone for an hour longer, not after last night. But the mule has got to be at the parsonage by noon, or the Reverend will have Briggs out here for horse thieving by 2 o'clock. Then you ride the mule back. You ride him back now and you trade him to somebody for a wagon. I do not care who. You tell them I will sign a note. You tell them I will sign 2 notes. You bring a wagon back here by 11 and we go to Cross Creek by dinner. Who is going to take a note from you today, Sarah? Everybody in that town heard about the auction. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody is loaning you a wheel off a broken cart. Somebody is Cade. I just do not know his name yet. He looked at her a long second. All right, he said. He gave her Samuel. He went out. She heard the mule leave the yard. She sat down at the table with the baby in her arms, and she stared at the two pieces of paper in front of her, her father's letter and the judge's telegram. And she thought, 4 days, 4 days, 4 days, until the word lost its meaning and became a sound in her mouth like an animal's breath. Cade came back at 11. He did not come back with a wagon. He came back on foot, leading the mule, and behind him in the road was a buckboard driven by a man Sarah had not laid eyes on in 6 years. She stood up on the porch so fast her vision grayed. Cade? Sarah. Is that Elias Boone? It is. Elias Boone, who left this county in 78 after a killing he did not do. The same. Elias Boone, who my father hid in our root cellar for 9 days while the marshals rode the county looking for him. Yes, Sarah. Cade Thornton. How did you find Elias Boone by 11 in the morning? Cade took off his hat and wiped his face. I did not find him. He was at the parsonage. He rode in last night from the Panhandle to pay respects at your father's grave. The Reverend put him up. He heard me arguing with Ames at 4 this morning. He rode out behind me at sunup and caught me up on the Cross Creek Road, and he said he had a debt to pay. The buckboard pulled into the yard. Elias Boone stepped down. He was older than Sarah remembered. His hair had gone white at the temples, and there was a seam of scar along his jaw that had not been there when he was 25. He took off his hat. Miss Sarah? Mr. Boone. I was awful sorry to hear about your daddy. Thank you, Mr. Boone. He saved my life in this yard. I know he did. I owe him a life, Miss Sarah, and I never got to pay it to him while he was living. So I'm going to pay it to his daughter if his daughter will let me. Sarah felt her throat close. Mr. Boone, I am not in a position to take charity. This is not charity. This is a debt. You will not take that away from me, Miss Sarah. A man goes to his grave either square or crooked, and I am going to my grave square with Thomas Miller. What are you offering, Mr. Boone? I am offering you this wagon for as long as you need it. I am offering you the 2 horses hitched to it for as long as you need them. I am offering you a witness in a court of law on any matter your father ever handled, because I rode with your father before I rode out of this county, and I know every piece of land he ever owned, and every man he ever crossed, and every lie Clarence Wade ever told about him. That is what I am offering. Cade was watching her. Sarah drew a breath. Mr. Boone, do you know what Clarence Wade is bringing against me on Monday? Cade told me on the road about your mother. And I knew your mother, Miss Sarah. The porch went still. You knew her. I knew her in 1872. I was 17 years old. Your daddy and I were riding for a cattle outfit out of Fort Gibson. We rode up into the Cherokee Nation on a cutting job, and we stayed 3 months. Your daddy met your mother on a Tuesday in June of that year, and he married her on a Sunday in September, and I was a witness at the marriage. Sarah sat down on the porch step. You are a witness. I am. You can swear to the marriage. In a court of law, yes, ma'am, under oath, with my hand on a Bible, Monday morning in Guthrie, if that is what you need. Mr. Boone? Yes, Miss Sarah. Why has nobody known this for 30 years? Because your daddy asked me not to speak of it, and I did not speak of it. Not when I was in this county, and not after I left it. Your daddy is dead now, Miss Sarah. He cannot ask me for silence anymore. And the man he was afraid of is the same man who is trying to take this land off you. So the silence is done. Cade said very quietly, Sarah? I heard him, Cade. Sarah, this changes the hearing. I know it does. This changes every piece of paper Wade has drawn up for Monday. I know it does, Cade. She stood up. Her legs were shaking. Mr. Boone. Miss Sarah. You will stay in my father's house, in my father's room, until Monday. I will stay wherever you tell me to stay, Miss Sarah. "Thank you, Mr. Boone." "You do not thank a man for paying a debt, Miss Sarah." They went to Cross Creek that afternoon, not to argue, not to speak, just to be seen. Sarah in the buckboard with Samuel on her lap, Cade on the seat beside her. Elias Boone, on a gray mare he had unhitched, riding half a length ahead like a man who was daring the town to say a word. They tied up in front of the general store. Half the town was on the boardwalk before Sarah had her feet on the step. Mrs. Hennessy came out of the milliner's. She had a parcel in her hands and she dropped it when she saw Sarah. "Sarah Miller, Mrs. Hennessy." "You brought that child into town." "I did." "You brought him into this town on a Wednesday afternoon in the open air." "I did, Mrs. Hennessy." You are making a spectacle, Sarah." "Mrs. Hennessy, I have been a spectacle in this town since my husband died. I have been a spectacle since my father died. I was a spectacle at the auction on Tuesday. I am going to be a spectacle in a Guthrie courtroom on Monday. I am no longer concerned with being a spectacle. I am concerned with buying flour and buying salt and buying nails and going home before sundown." "Sarah." "Good day, Mrs. Hennessy." She went into the store. The storekeeper was a man named Pettis. He had known Sarah since she was a child. He had refused her credit 2 weeks ago on the standing order that had been her father's for 20 years. He looked at her over his spectacles. "Miss Miller?" "Mr. Pettis." "I cannot extend credit." "I did not ask for credit." She set a $10 gold piece on the counter. It was Elias Boone's. He had pressed it into her palm before she came in. Pettis looked at it. "Miss Miller, that gold piece." "What of it, Mr. Pettis?" "That gold piece has a nick on the rim in the shape of a quarter moon. Your father showed me one just like it last Christmas. He said it was a piece Elias Boone had given him in 1876 out of a pay from a cattle drive. He said it was his lucky piece and he would not spend it." Sarah looked at the gold piece. She had not known. Elias had not told her. She did not turn her head. She did not blink. She said, "Then I imagine you had best take good care of it, Mr. Pettis, because it is mine now, and I will want it back in change when I have spent the value of it." Pettis's jaw worked. "Flour," he said. "Salt. Nails. Anything else?" "Lye. Coffee. A half-pound of sugar. A bolt of unbleached muslin if you have it." "I have it." "Then I will take it." He measured out her order in silence. He did not speak to her again. When she carried her parcels out to the wagon, Cade took them from her without a word, and Elias Boone tipped his hat to Pettis through the open door. They were loading the wagon when the shadow came across the boards. Sarah felt it before she looked up. Halsey. He was taller than she had pictured, thin, a black coat in July, a gun on his hip that he wore high like a man who used it sitting down. His eyes were pale, and his mouth did not move when he spoke. "Miss Miller." "Mr. Halsey." "You know my name." "I know every name that matters this week, Mr. Halsey." He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "Mr. Wade sends his regards." "Does he?" "He says he will see you Monday in Guthrie." "I imagine he will." "He says he would be sorry to see you make that long trip in your condition, ma'am. He says a woman as far along as you are ought to be lying and not riding in a wagon over bad road." Elias Boone stepped out from behind the wagon. Halsey's eyes flicked to him. The smile did not move, but something else in his face did. Just a muscle in his cheek. Just a tightening. "Boone." "Halsey." "I did not know you were in the territory." "I am in the territory, Halsey." "For how long?" "For as long as is required." Halsey's pale eyes went back to Sarah. "Miss Miller, you travel in interesting company." "I travel in the company my father's friends choose to keep, Mr. Halsey, not the company Mr. Wade pays to keep." "You are a bold woman." "I am a tired woman, Mr. Halsey. There is a difference. Mr. Wade wished me to tell you that he would consider a compromise, a settlement. If you were willing to release your claim on the Thornton note and on the eastern 40 of your father's land, Mr. Wade is prepared to withdraw the Monday action entirely. No court. No hearing. No further inquiry into the family history. Sarah's hand tightened on Samuel. "Tell Mr. Wade." "Yes, ma'am." "Tell Mr. Wade that I will see him Monday in Guthrie." "That is your answer, Miss Miller." "That is my answer, Mr. Halsey." He touched his hat. He walked off down the boardwalk. He did not look back. Cade had his hand on the wagon rail. Sarah looked at his knuckles, and they were white. "Cade, I am all right." "You are not all right." "I will be all right when we are out of this town." "Then we are going." They went. Halfway home, the pain started. It started in her lower back, and it spread around to her belly, and for a full minute, Sarah did not say a word. She gripped the wagon seat. She counted. The pain stopped. Then it started again. "Cade." "Sarah." "Stop the wagon." He stopped the wagon. He looked at her. Elias Boone rode up alongside. "Miss Sarah." "Mr. Boone." "How far is it to the homestead?" "1.25 miles." "How far is it to a midwife?" Elias and Cade looked at each other. "Sarah." Cade's voice had gone low and careful. "Sarah, are you—" "I don't know, Cade. It's too early. It is 6 weeks too early. I don't know." "Ride," Elias said to Cade. "Ride for the Widow Platt. She is the closest. Take my mare. I will bring Miss Sarah home in the wagon." Sarah. "Go, Cade. Go now." He went. Elias Boone drove the wagon at a walk for the last mile, because any faster would have hurt her worse. Samuel slept in her lap through the whole of it, the smallest and calmest creature in the whole of Caddo County that afternoon. Sarah breathed through 3 more pains on the ride, and then they eased, and then they stopped. By the time they reached the cabin, she was cold and shaking, but the pain was gone. Elias carried her inside like a man carrying a rifle, careful and level. He laid her on her father's bed. He put Samuel in the cradle. "Mr. Boone." "Miss Sarah." "Do not leave the yard." "I will not leave the yard." The Widow Platt came at dark on Cade's horse behind him. She was 60 years old, and she had delivered half the children in the county. She put her hands on Sarah's belly, and she closed her eyes for a long minute, and then she opened them and said, "You are not losing this baby tonight, child, but you are close enough to it that I am telling you the only medicine I have." "What is it?" "You get off your feet until Monday. You do not ride a wagon. You do not split a stick of wood. You do not hang a line of wash. You lie in that bed and you let the men in this house do for you. And if the pains come back, you send somebody for me at once, and I will come at any hour. Do you hear me, Sarah Miller?" "I hear you." "Do you understand me?" "I understand you." Monday is Monday, child. But Friday and Saturday and Sunday are not Monday. You keep this child in your body until Monday. After Monday, we will talk about after Monday." "Yes, ma'am." The Widow Platt left at 9. Cade sat by the bed. He had not said a word in 3 hours. "Cade." "Sarah." "I cannot ride to Guthrie on Monday." "I know." "If I do not appear at the hearing, Wade wins by default." "I know, Sarah." "Unless—" "Unless what?" She looked at him. "Unless Mr. Thornton appears on behalf of the Miller homestead." Cade was still. "Sarah." "A hired hand cannot appear for a homestead, Cade. A husband can." "Sarah." "A husband can sign for the land. A husband can answer the charge. A husband can call Elias Boone as a witness on my behalf without my having to be there in the room. A husband can stand in Guthrie on Monday while the wife lies in Caddo County, keeping a 6-week early baby in her body." "Sarah, do not do this because of Monday." "Then give me another reason not to do it, Cade." "Sarah, I am not asking for a love match. I am asking for a legal instrument. Mr. Boone is in the house. Reverend Ames will not stand up for a sermon on me, but he will stand up for a marriage because he has to. The register is in Guthrie. We go in on Friday. We are back Friday night. We bury the question before Wade ever puts it to the judge." "Sarah, listen to me." "I am listening, Cade. If I marry you on Friday for Monday, if I marry you because of the hearing and nothing else, then for the rest of our lives, whatever we build, You are going to wonder if I did it for the land. And I am going to wonder if you did it for the court. And that is not a way to raise two children." The cabin was quiet. Sarah reached out. She put her hand on his wrist. It was the first time she had touched him of her own will in the 3 days they had known each other. "Cade Thornton." "Sarah, 2 days ago, I bought you out of an auction with $6 because I could not stand to watch a man lose his baby. You have slept in my barn for 2 nights because I told you to, and not once have you argued me for the roof. You rode 16 miles on foot yesterday for a goat because your son needed milk. You rode out at 4 this morning and came back with Elias Boone because a reverend said no to me and you would not let the answer be no. You caught me on my own porch this morning when my knees went, and you did it without thinking, and you did not use the chance to put your hand anywhere on me. You had no business putting it. I have known you 3 days, Cade. And in 3 days, I have seen more of your character than I saw of my first husband's in 2 years of marriage. I am not asking you on Friday because of Monday. I am asking you on Friday because if we live through Monday, I want to live through Tuesday next to you. That is the reason. Now tell me yours." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Sarah Miller. "My reason is that you named my son in your family Bible before you ever asked me what mine was. My reason is that you stood up in a square full of people who had spit on me for 3 days, and you bought me for $6, and you did not ask me to be grateful for it. My reason is that I have not been able to think past the sound of you singing, 'Bringing in the sheaves' to my wife's baby on a bed you used to share with your husband. That is my reason. And it is a better reason than the hearing. Then we agree. We agree. Friday, Guthrie, Reverend in the courthouse, not in Cross Creek. Friday. You tell Elias tonight. I will tell the widow Platt tomorrow morning when she comes back to check on me. There will be no guests. There will be no flowers. There will be a paper and 2 signatures and a witness. It is a marriage of convenience, Cade. For now. For now. After the hearing, we will speak of whether it is anything else. Yes, Sarah. Go to the barn, Cade. I am still unmarried tonight." He got up. He was at the door when she said, "Cade." "Sarah." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I ain't done anything yet." "You have done everything, Cade Thornton. You have just not been paid for any of it." He left. Sarah lay alone on her father's bed. Samuel slept in the cradle 3 feet from her head. In the other room, Elias Boone was rolling himself a cigarette at the kitchen table, and she could hear the quiet scratch of paper and the strike of a match. She did not sleep. She was still awake when she heard the hoofbeats. 2 riders. Not one. Coming fast up the road from the west. She sat up. She reached under the mattress where her father had kept a colt since before she was born, and her fingers closed around the grip. Elias was already at the window in the front room. She heard the bolt draw back on his rifle. "Cade," Elias called quietly into the yard. "Cade, wake up. We got company." And the hoofbeats came on. "Elias." "I hear them, Cade." Cade was in the kitchen in one motion, rifle in his hands, shirt half-buttoned. Sarah sat up on the bed with the colt heavy in her lap and the baby in the cradle 3 feet from her head. 2 riders, Elias said. "Coming slow now." Coming slow and calling off Cade. "Listen." A voice rose up out of the dark on the Cross Creek Road. A man's voice. Strong. Unhurried. Speaking a language Sarah had never heard spoken in her father's yard. Elias lowered the rifle 1 inch. "Lord have mercy," he said. "What is it, Mr. Boone?" "Miss Sarah, stay on that bed." "Mr. Boone." "Stay on that bed, child. I am not telling you twice." He opened the door. Cade went out on his heel. Sarah could hear from the bedroom the hoofbeats coming into the yard, the creak of saddle leather, a woman's voice speaking low, and Elias Boone's voice answering in the same language, halting and plain and sure. Then Cade came to the doorway of the bedroom. He had the rifle at his side. His face had gone gentle in a way Sarah had not seen before. "Sarah." "Cade." "There is a woman in the yard who has ridden 6 days to get here. She is in from the Cherokee Nation. Her name is Awinita." Sarah did not move. She could not move. Sarah. Cade, did you say Awenita? I said Awenita. Is she alone? She is with a light horse officer. He is an escort. He will sleep outside. Cade. Yes, Sarah. Bring her in. He went. Sarah heard him say something quiet in the front room. Heard Elias answer. Heard a woman's step on the kitchen boards, a step heavier on the left than on the right. An older woman's step, a step Sarah did not know and had never heard and would have known anywhere in the world. The woman came into the bedroom. She was tall. Her hair was going to iron in long twin braids that fell past her belt. Her eyes were the eyes Sarah saw in the mirror every morning of her life. She stood in the doorway a long moment and did not come any closer. Sarah Miller? Yes, ma'am. I was told not to come. By my father, by your father, 30 years ago. And every year after in a letter that came up to me in the Nation by a man who wrote a circuit. Your father wrote me one letter every summer of your life. He told me your height. He told me what books you were reading. He told me when you married. He told me when your husband died. He told me when he himself took sick, and he told me in that same letter that I was not to come for you under any circumstance, because he said it would mark you with a blood the territory would never forgive. Who told you to come? Elias Boone sent a rider to me the day your father was buried, 10 days ago. I rode for the Nation line that same afternoon. Sarah's voice would not come. Awenita took one step into the room. Sarah, I am not going to ask you for anything. I am not going to ask you to know me. I am not going to ask you to call me by any name. I am going to ask you one question, and you may answer it, or you may send me out of this house. You choose. Ask it. Do you want me in that courtroom on Monday morning? Sarah closed her eyes. Sarah Miller. A man is trying to take your father's land on the ground that your father married outside his race. There is a paper in the Cherokee Nation Courthouse at Tahlequah that is dated September the 8th, 1872, and is signed by Thomas Miller and Awenita Reese and witnessed by Elias Boone and by a judge of the Cherokee Court. That paper is still good paper. I have it in my saddlebag. I rode with it across 300 miles because your father was too afraid of this county to let me bring it to you while he was alive. I am not afraid of this county. I will stand in that courtroom on Monday, and I will put that paper on a judge's desk, and I will stand beside it. If you want me to. If I want you to. If you do not want me to, I will ride out of this yard at sunup, and I will not trouble you again. The paper is yours either way. I will leave it on the table. But I will not stand in a courtroom in your name without your leave. Sarah opened her eyes. Her mother was watching her with the stillness of a woman who had been watching things from a distance for 3 decades and had learned how to do it. Come sit down, Sarah said. Awenita came and sat on the edge of the bed. She did not reach for her daughter. She folded her hands in her lap and she waited. Sarah looked at her. You look like me. You look like me, Sarah. I came first. Yes, ma'am. You do not have to call me ma'am. You do not have to call me anything at all tonight. That is not what this hour is for. What is this hour for? This hour is for you to tell me whether you want me Monday. I want you Monday. Then I am here. Sarah's eyes filled. She did not let them spill. There is a baby in that cradle, she said. I saw him when I came in. He is not mine by blood. He is mine by a $6 claim at a public auction. Elias told me on the road about your auction. His father sleeps in the barn. Not past Friday, I understand. He told you that too. He told me everything between the Cross Creek Road and your front door. He is a talking man when he has a horse to talk over. I know about the hearing. I know about the preacher. I know about the widow Platt. I know about the pains on the wagon this afternoon. And I know you are not to ride. I know you plan to marry Cade Thornton on Friday for the sake of Monday's court. I know all of it, Sarah. Then you know there is not much left to say. There is one thing left to say. What? Awenita reached into the collar of her dress. She drew out a thin leather cord. On it hung a small silver ring worn smooth plain as water. This was mine on the day I married your father. I took it off the morning after he took you west. I have carried it under my dress for 30 years. If you are marrying on Friday and you do not have a ring, you take this one. It is not a gift. It is a return. It was bought with Miller money, and it comes back to a Miller hand." Sarah looked at the ring. She reached out. She closed her fingers over it. It was warm from her mother's body. "I will give it back to you after," she said. "No, you will not. I did not bring it here to take it home. You wear it until you wish to pass it to someone else." "Yes." "Sarah." "Yes." "You are not alone in that bed tonight." "No, ma'am, I am not." They stayed on the bed side by side for an hour, and they did not speak, and they did not touch. Awanita sat with her hands folded. Sarah lay with the ring closed in her fist. Samuel slept. At the end of the hour, Awanita rose and she went out to the front room without a word, and Sarah heard her ask Elias Boone for a blanket, and she heard Elias answer, and she heard the light horse officer's voice from the yard asking after the horses in English as plain as any cowhand. She slept then. She slept for the first time all week. Friday came. They rode to Guthrie at dawn, Cade driving the wagon, Sarah on a folded quilt in the wagon bed, because the widow Platt had come at sunup and said the pains had held off through the night, and one careful trip would be permitted if the trip was one way and slow. Awanita rode alongside on her own horse. Elias rode behind. The light horse officer stayed at the homestead with Samuel and a rifle. They went to the courthouse first. The clerk in Guthrie was a gray-haired man named Stimson. He did not blink when Cade laid a marriage application on his counter. He did not blink when Sarah signed it. He did not blink when Elias Boone signed as a witness, and Awanita Reese signed as a second witness. He looked up only once. "Awanita Reese." "Yes, sir." "Any relation to the Reeses of the Cherokee Nation, Tahlequah District?" "I am my father's daughter, sir. Judge Reese was my father." Stimson's pen stopped. "Ma'am," he said. "Yes, sir. I clerked in your father's court for 3 months in '71 as a young man. I remember you, Mr. Stimson. Ma'am, if you are testifying in Judge Otis's court on Monday—" "I am." "Then I will tell you now that Judge Otis read law under your father in the summer of '69. The courthouse went very still. Awanita did not change expression. "Thank you, Mr. Stimson." "Yes, ma'am." He stamped the application. A circuit preacher married Cade and Sarah in a back office of the Guthrie Courthouse at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Elias stood up for Cade. Awanita stood up for Sarah. The preacher asked the questions in the shortest form the book allowed. Cade answered. Sarah answered. Cade slid Awanita's silver ring onto Sarah's finger with a hand that did not shake. He said, "I take thee, Sarah." She said, "I take thee, Cade." The preacher said, "By the authority vested in me by the territory of Oklahoma and the Almighty God, I pronounce you man and wife." Cade did not kiss her. He took her hand, and he held it a moment, and he let go. She understood. She was grateful. They were back at the homestead by dark. Samuel was asleep on the light horse officer's chest, in the rocking chair, and the officer did not stand up when they came in, because the baby was sleeping, and Sarah loved him for that small mercy forever after. Saturday was quiet. Sunday was quieter. Sarah did not leave the bed. Cade slept in the barn because he had given his word, and Awanita did not ask him why, and Elias did not remark on it, and Sarah did not argue it. There would be time, after Monday, if there was an after Monday. They rode for Guthrie before first light on Monday morning. The courthouse was full when they walked in. Wade was at the petitioner's table in his white linen suit. His lawyer was a thin man from Kansas City named Pruitt, who had earned a reputation for skinning widows out of rangeland by the simple method of outlasting their lawyers. Halsey sat one row back. Briggs was in the gallery. Half of Cross Creek had come up on the stage to watch. Cade walked Sarah to the respondent's table because the widow Platt had made her swear she would walk no further than that. He sat beside her. Awanita sat behind them. Elias Boone sat beside Awanita. Judge Otis came in. He was a tall, dry man of 70 years. He had reading spectacles on a cord around his neck, He looked out over the courtroom once, and he looked at nobody twice. Pruitt. Your Honor. State your action. Your Honor. We move to void the homestead patent of one Thomas Miller, deceased, of Caddo County, on the ground that said patent was procured by fraud in 1873, in that the applicant Thomas Miller failed to disclose on his application that the child listed as his issue. One Sarah Miller here present was the issue of a non-white mother, to wit a Cherokee woman, which fact at that time would have disqualified the applicant under the racial provisions of stop. Judge Otis had not raised his voice. Pruitt stopped. Pruitt. Was Thomas Miller married at the time of the homestead application? That is in dispute, Your Honor. Was he or was he not? The petitioner's position is that he was not lawfully married under the statutes of Pruitt. Sit down. Mr. Boone. Elias stood. Mr. Boone. Were you a witness to the marriage of Thomas Miller to Awanita Reese? I was, Your Honor. Where? Tahlequah, Cherokee Nation, September the 8th, 1872. Under whose authority? Judge William Reese of the Cherokee Nation. The lady's father. Yes, Your Honor. Is there a record? There is, Your Honor. The lady has brought it. Ma'am? Awanita stood. She carried the paper to the bench herself. The judge took it. He put on his spectacles. He read it for what felt like a long time. Pruitt said, Your Honor, a Cherokee Nation marriage certificate is not a valid. Pruitt. Your Honor, I read law under William Reese in the summer of 1869. This is his hand. This is his seal. This is a lawful marriage under the laws of the Cherokee Nation in force at the time, and this territorial court has recognized such marriages since 1866 under the treaty of that year. You know this, Pruitt. You knew it when you filed this action. Sit down. Pruitt sat down. Wade did not move. Mr. Wade. Your Honor, your petition rests on the premise that Thomas Miller was not married to this lady. Your petition is dismissed on its face. Do you have any further action before this court today? Wade's face was the color of paper. Your Honor, I wish to withdraw the petition. You cannot withdraw a petition that has been dismissed, Mr. Wade. It is already gone. What you can do is pay the respondent's costs, which I am awarding from the bench at this moment in the amount of $200, payable today. Before you leave this courthouse, clerk. Your Honor. Enter the judgment. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Thornton. Sarah stood. Her knees were shaking. Cade's hand came under her elbow and held her up. Your Honor, I note for the record that you are here under your married name on a suit filed against your maiden name. Is the marriage of record? It is, Your Honor. Friday last, in this courthouse. Then there is no controversy as to your identity. This court finds the homestead patent of Thomas Miller, deceased, valid and unimpaired. The 30-day occupancy requirement imposed by the note held by the Caddo County Bank is stayed for a period of 60 days on the court's own motion to allow the surviving claimant time to recover from her present condition. You may go home, Mrs. Thornton. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wade? Your Honor, you will not appear before this bench on this matter again. Do we understand each other? We understand each other, Your Honor. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Sarah did not remember walking out of the courtroom. She remembered Cade's arm under her elbow. She remembered Awanita on her other side. She remembered Elias Boone walking behind them like a man with a rifle, even though he had no rifle. She remembered Wade in the corridor. He stepped out from between two pillars. His face was no longer white. It was red with a color Sarah had never seen on a man's face before, a color between rage and grief, and something worse than either. Mrs. Thornton? Mr. Wade. A word. You may have one word, Mr. Wade, not two. You have won a courtroom, girl. You have not won the county. That was one word, Mr. Wade. You used it badly. His jaw worked. He looked at Cade. He looked at Awanita. He looked back at Sarah. Your husband owes me $412. My husband owes the holder of his note $412. And 60 days ago that holder was you, Mr. Wade. But this morning at 9 o'clock, I filed a letter of assumption with the Guthrie Land Office, assigning that note to the Miller homestead at full face value payable over 7 years, as stated at public auction. That note is no longer your property. You were paid off by my assumption at 9 o'clock, Mr. Wade. You have been collecting on a debt you no longer hold for 3 days. I will be filing a complaint to that effect with Judge Otis this afternoon if there is any further conversation between us. Wade did not speak. He could not. Sarah took one step closer to him. She was a short woman, and he was a tall man, and her belly was between them, and she looked up at him with her mother's eyes and her father's mouth. Mr. Wade, you have been hunting my father for 11 years. He is dead. You cannot hurt him anymore. You have hunted me for 3 weeks. You have lost in a courtroom. You will lose in every other place you try. I am telling you this now in this corridor because I am a Christian woman, and I will give a man one warning. The next move you make against my homestead, my husband, my son, or my mother, I will answer not in a court. Do you understand me, Mr. Wade? Wade's mouth moved. Nothing came out of it. Sarah stepped past him. Cade's arm stayed under her elbow. They walked down the corridor and out into the street, and the summer sun was high and white and merciless. They were a mile out of Guthrie on the homeward road when Elias Boone drew his mare up alongside the wagon. Cade. Elias. Halsey was not in that corridor. I noticed. Halsey was not in that courtroom either. I noticed that too. Briggs was in the gallery. Pruitt was at the table. Every man Wade has put $1 into this year was in Guthrie this morning. Halsey was not one of them. Cade's hand tightened on the reins. Where? I do not know, Cade. Sarah in the wagon bed had gone still. She lifted her head. Cade. Sarah. The light horse officer is at the homestead. I know. With Samuel. I know, Sarah. Alone. He is a light horse officer, Sarah. He is not alone. He is armed. Cade. Go faster. He went faster. They came up on the homestead at sundown. Cade had the reins in one hand and the rifle in the other. Awenita had unstrapped her horse's bridle an hour back so she could ride harder. Elias was half a length ahead scouting the yard. Elias reined up. He did not cry out. He did not raise the rifle. He sat his horse at the gate and he looked at the ground for a long moment. Then he turned around. His face was a thing Sarah would remember for the rest of her life. Cade. Elias. Get Miss Sarah down slow. Elias. Where is my son? Cade. Get her down slow. Where is my son Elias? Cade. Get her down first. Then I will tell you. I give you my word, I will tell you. But you will get her down first, or I will not say another thing. Cade dropped the reins. He was over the side of the wagon in one motion. He got his arms under Sarah, and he lifted her out of the bed, and he set her feet on the dirt, and he did not let go of her elbow. Elias, now. Cade, the light horse officer is in the yard. He is alive. He is hurt. And the baby. The baby is gone, Cade. Sarah's knees went. Cade caught her. He did not say a word. He walked her to the porch step, and he sat her down on it, and he knelt in front of her, and he put both hands on her shoulders. Sarah, look at me. Cade, look at me. Sarah, listen. Gone is not dead. Gone is gone. Elias. Cade, tell me what you see. I see one rider's tracks coming in from the west. I see one rider's tracks going out again. I see the officer against the side of the barn. He has been shot once in the leg and once across the side of the head, and he is sitting up. I do not see the baby, and I do not see the cradle Miss Sarah took out to the yard this morning for the air. Awenita was already past them. She went to the officer at a run that should not have been possible for a woman her age who had ridden a full day. Sarah saw her drop to her knees in the dirt beside him, saw her hands go to his head, saw her speak to him in their language low and fast. Cade did not take his eyes off Sarah's face. Sarah, I am going after him. I know. I am going right now, with Elias. On your mother's horse because he is the freshest animal in this yard. I will find him, Sarah. I will find him before dawn. Do you hear me? Cade. Do you hear me, Sarah? I hear you. Your mother will stay with you. The officer is hurt, but he will live. The widow Platt is 3 miles off. I will send Elias's second man for her on the way out. You will not lose this baby tonight, Sarah Miller. Not tonight. You have lost enough, and you will not lose any more. Say it back to me. I will not lose this baby tonight. Good girl. He kissed her forehead. Fast. Not a husband's kiss. A promise. Then he was in the saddle, and Elias was in his own saddle, and they were gone out of the yard at a gallop westward, the way the one set of tracks had gone. Awanita helped the officer up and into the cabin. His name was Tsia. He was 30 years old, and he had a bullet crease through the hair above his right ear that had stunned him, and a rifle ball in the meat of his thigh that he had already tied off with his own belt. He did not speak any of it as a complaint. He spoke it as a report. One man, he said. White, tall, black coat, pale eyes. He came on foot from the west. He shot the baby's dog first. I did not know there was a dog, Sarah said. He came up this morning, Awanita said. He followed the wagon for a mile, and then he turned back. I did not want to tell you. He was a stray. The man shot him first, Tsia said. Then he shot at me from the brush. He is a very good shot. Then he came into the yard and took the child out of the cradle, and he walked backward to his horse because he wanted me to see his face. He wanted me to tell you his face. Halsey. That was the name he spoke. He said to tell Mrs. Thornton that Halsey has her son, and that Halsey will be at the burned Caton place west of the ford by midnight, and that Halsey will trade the child for a signed release of the eastern 40 of your father's land, and for a written retraction of everything said in the Guthrie courthouse this morning, or he will? Tsia did not finish. Sarah said, he will what, officer? Mrs. Thornton, I will not say the words he used. Officer? He said he would leave the child where the coyotes would find him before sunup. That is a close translation. The words he used were uglier. Sarah did not cry. She had cried for 4 days, and she had no tears left for Halsey. Mother. Awanita looked up. It was the first time Sarah had said the word. Mother. Get the officer on the bed. Get his leg cleaned. Get the widow Platt. I will sit at the table. I will not stand, and I will not walk. I will sit at the table, and I will wait. Sarah. I cannot go after him, Mother. I cannot walk out of this yard. If I try, I will lose the baby in my body, and I will be no good to the baby in Halsey's hands. So I will do the hardest thing a mother can do tonight. I will sit at this table, and I will wait for the men to bring my son home. Yes, and if they do not bring him home by sunup, I will send for Judge Otis, and I will send for every federal marshal in the territory, and I will burn Clarence Wade's house to the ground with my own 2 hands. That is what I will do. But not until sunup. Until sunup, I will sit. Yes, Sarah. Go. Awanita went. Sarah sat at the kitchen table in her father's cabin, with her hand flat on the wood. She counted her breaths. She counted the pains that were not coming. She willed them not to come. She spoke once aloud into the empty air of the kitchen. Pa, she said. Pa, if you are anywhere, you can hear me. You ride with him tonight. You ride with Cade, and you ride with Elias, and you find that baby. You owe me that, Pa. After the letter you left, you owe me that. She did not cry. She sat. Cade and Elias did not go to the burned Caton place. They went to the only place a man like Halsey would go if a man like Halsey was lying about where he was going. They went to the north fork of the creek at Brewster's Cut 3 miles east of the Caton place, where a rider could hide a horse in the willows and walk a mile downstream to the road back to Cross Creek. It was the place Elias Boone had used in 1878 to get out of the county alive. If it is me in his boots, Elias said low, I am not at the place I told the woman to come. I am at the place I can see the place I told the woman to come. I am in the brush with a rifle, and I am waiting for the men she sends. And the baby. The baby is somewhere I can reach in 5 minutes if the trade goes, and somewhere I can leave in 5 minutes if it don't. And that Cade is the Caton spring house, not the burned house. The spring house. The spring house is stone. A child will keep in a stone spring house 2 days. The burned house is open country. Elias? Cade. How do you know this country? Because I was a wanted man in it for 4 months in 1878. Cade Thornton. I know every hiding place in Caddo County by its Christian name. They rode. They came up on the Caton place from the east on foot with the horses tied back half a mile. The moon was a quarter full, and it was enough. Elias went to the spring house. Cade went to the willows on the creek. Halsey was in the willows, and he had a Sharp's rifle across his knees and a clay pipe between his teeth, and he was watching the road to the burned house with the patient eye of a man who had killed for pay in 3 states and had never yet been caught at it. He did not hear Cade until Cade was 4 feet behind him. Cade said very quietly, "Halsey." Halsey did not move. "Halsey, you put the rifle down on the grass. You put the pipe down beside it. You put your hands on top of your head. I am not going to tell you twice, and I am not going to ask you at all." Halsey said without turning, "Thornton, you will not shoot a man in the back." "I will shoot a man who took my son. I will shoot him in the back. I will shoot him in the front. I will shoot him in any direction he is standing when I find him. Put the rifle down." Halsey put the rifle down. He put the pipe down. He put his hands on his head. "Now stand." Halsey stood. "Now turn." Halsey turned. Cade's rifle was 6 inches from his chest. "Where is the boy?" "Thornton." "Where is the boy, Halsey?" "He is safe." "That is not an answer." "Where?" "I will trade you for him." "You will trade me nothing. You will tell me where he is, and you will tell me now, or I will put this rifle ball through the front of your coat." "Then you will never find him." Cade thumbed the hammer back. It was at that moment that Elias Boone came out of the willows behind Halsey, with a 3-day-old baby wrapped in a gray blanket against his shoulder. "He's here, Cade. He was in the spring house. He's cold, and he's hungry, and he's breathing." Halsey's face changed. Just for a second. Just long enough. Cade did not pull the trigger. He swung the rifle instead. The butt of it took Halsey across the temple. Halsey went down without a sound into the creek grass, and Cade stood over him with the rifle and did not pull the trigger. And later Sarah would ask him why, and he would say, "Because I did not want our son to grow up in the house of a man who had killed another man in cold blood for him. That is why Sarah. Only that." Elias said, "Cade, tie him." "I'm tying him." "Tie him good. We are taking him to Guthrie alive. Judge Otis will want him alive. So will the governor of Missouri." "I am tying him, Elias." Elias held the baby against his shoulder, and the baby made one small cracked cry, and Elias hushed him and rocked him, and Cade tied Halsey's wrists and ankles with a length of saddle leather Halsey had meant to use on somebody else's hands. They put Halsey across the back of Halsey's own horse. They rode for home. They came into the yard at 4:30 in the morning. Sarah heard the hooves, and she did not stand up. She could not. Her legs had gone numb 3 hours ago from sitting. Awenita went to the door. "Sarah." "Mother." "They have him." "Alive." "Alive and asleep and in Elias's arms." Sarah closed her eyes. She did not cry now either. That would come later. That would come in a month when she was rocking Samuel in the cradle at 3 in the afternoon, and the sunlight would hit the floor the way it used to hit the floor the year her father was still alive, and she would weep then for an hour straight and not know exactly what she was weeping for. But not tonight. Tonight her eyes were dry as stones. Cade came in with the baby. He put him in her arms. She held him. She felt him breathe against her collarbone. She put her lips to the top of his head, and she said nothing at all. Cade sat down on the floor at her feet. He put his head against her knee. He did not speak. After a long while, she put her free hand on his hair. "Cade, Sarah. You came home. I came home. You brought him home. I brought him home. Cade. Yes, Sarah. Tomorrow you are moving your bedroll out of the barn. Yes, Sarah. Not into my bed, into my father's bedroom across the hall. You will sleep there until I say otherwise, but you are not sleeping in the barn one more night. I am done with the barn. I am done with a husband in a barn. Yes, Sarah. Cade. Yes, Sarah. Thank you for coming home, Sarah Miller Thornton. I am going to come home to you every night of my life until I am too old to find the road. That is not a promise a man makes because he is asked to. That is a thing that is true from tonight forward. I wanted you to hear it out loud one time. I heard it. Good. Halsey hanged in Guthrie the following April for the murder of a sheriff in Missouri 12 years earlier, and the attempted kidnapping of a minor child in the Oklahoma Territory, and the judge who sentenced him was Judge Otis, and the prosecutor who tried him called Elias Boone as the first witness, and Sia of the Cherokee Light Horse as the second. Clarence Wade did not hang. Wade was not the hanging kind. Wade sold his holdings in Caddo County at a loss in the autumn of that same year and moved to St. Louis, where he died 4 years later of a bad heart behind the desk of a second-rate insurance office. Sarah heard of his passing from a newspaper the widow Platt brought out from town, and she folded the paper and set it on the kitchen table, and she did not say anything about it to anyone, not even to Cade, not even to Awanita, because there are some men whose deaths do not deserve so much as a word. The Miller homestead was never the Miller homestead again. On a Tuesday in September of that year, 1 year to the day from her father's burial, Sarah signed the papers at the Guthrie Land Office that changed the name on the deed. It was entered as the Thornton place in the county books. But on the gatepost, carved by Cade Thornton's own hand, the following spring it said, Miller Thornton, established 1872. Because 1872 was the year Awanita Reese had married Thomas Miller in Tahlequah. And because Sarah had decided that the land would carry the year its blood began, not the year a white man's title was filed on it. Thomas Miller the Younger was born on a Thursday in August, 5 weeks after the hearing in Guthrie, healthy and loud and red-faced in the same bed where his grandfather had died. The widow Platt delivered him. Awanita held Sarah's hand through the whole of it. Cade stood outside the door with Samuel in his arms, because Samuel had woken at the first cry and would not settle for anyone else. When the widow Platt finally opened the door, Cade came in with Samuel still against his shoulder, and he looked at Sarah, and he looked at the new baby at her breast, and he said, Sarah. Cade. We got 2 boys. We got 2 boys, Cade. We are going to need a bigger table. We are going to need a bigger everything. I will build it. I know you will. That winter was hard. Every winter in that country was hard. But the wheat Sarah had planted out of her father's last seed came up thick in the spring, and the goat had a kid, and Awanita did not go back to the nation. She built a second cabin on the South 40 with her own hands and the help of Elias Boone, who did not go back to the Panhandle either. And by the second summer, the Miller Thornton place was running 40 head of cattle and 80 of sheep, and the yard had 2 children under 2 years old in it at every hour of daylight. On an evening in the 3rd summer, Sarah sat on the porch with Thomas on her hip and Samuel at her knee. Cade was in the yard, shoeing the gray mare that had been Awanita's and was now a family animal. Awanita was at the well. Elias was riding in from the south pasture with the dog, a new dog, a good dog, a black and white pup, who had grown into 60 pounds of loyalty running alongside his stirrup. Sarah looked out at all of it. She thought of the square in Cross Creek 3 years back. She thought of a splintered platform and a 3-day-old baby screaming in a man's arms, and 6 crumpled dollars in her pocket against the world. She had stood up that day because she could not stand to sit down, and the world had not given her one single thing since. The world had not handed her a husband. The world had not handed her a son. The world had not handed her a mother. The world had not handed her this land. She had built every one of them. Out of $6 and a mouth and a grave and a letter and a Bible with 2 signatures in it and a courtroom in Guthrie and a stone spring house at 4 o'clock on a summer morning. A person's worth is not what they are given. A person's worth is what they build. Her father had said so. And he had been right. Sarah Miller Thornton sat on her own porch in the gold of a summer evening, with her son on her hip and her son at her knee and a husband in her yard and a mother at her well. And she was not a widow anymore, and she was not alone anymore, and she was not afraid anymore. She was a woman who had walked up to an auction block with $6 and had walked away with a family, and she had kept that family against a banker and a gunman and a territorial court and her own dying father's secret, and she had kept it by refusing one single time in a public square on the hottest Tuesday of the hottest summer in 10 years to sit down when the rest of the world told her to. She had built her life with her own 2 hands. And nobody, not Clarence Wade, not Halsey, not the preacher's wife, not the law of the territory, not the ghosts of everything she had buried, was ever going to take it from her again. That is the end of the story.